You know that moment when your cat finally settles beside you after acting distant all day, and everything suddenly feels quiet. Your breath eases, your mind slows down, and for the first time since morning, your body actually lets go. If that sounds familiar, this video is going to feel deeply personal. Let me ask you something. When your cat pushes your coffee off the counter, looks straight at you, and shows zero regret, do you get angry? Or do you secretly respect the boldness? If you pick the second option, you're about to understand why your mind works the way it does. Because here's what people rarely say about being a cat person. It's not really about personality. It's about how your nervous system handles the world around you. Some people regulate through movement and stimulation. They need action, engagement, clear signals, and constant interaction. Dogs fit perfectly into that rhythm. They seek contact, reflect excitement, and keep energy flowing. But other nervous systems work differently. They find balance through quiet, through consistency, through spaces with no pressure at all. A cat doesn't rush toward you to release energy. It simply occupies a space and allows you to be there too. There's no expectation to react, perform, or manage anyone else's emotions. For people whose nervous systems spend the day scanning, anticipating, and self-checking, this kind of presence means everything. When someone says, "I don't like dogs, they're too much," they're often describing overstimulation. When they say, "I like cats, they're calming," they're talking about regulation. Cat people aren't choosing distance. They're choosing environments that let their bodies slow down, lower alertness, and rest without needing to perform. And once you see it this way, it all clicks. The connection cat people feel isn't just soothing. It feels safe in a way human relationships often don't. Human connections come with invisible demands. You're expected to reply quickly, explain emotions, reassure constantly, and match someone else's emotional pace. Even affection can carry pressure. Why aren't you more expressive? Why don't you need me the same way? For people who are sensitive, observant, or easily overwhelmed, this constant emotional negotiation is draining. Cats don't function like that. A cat never assumes access to you. Its closeness is offered freely, never forced. When a cat decides to settle on your lap, it does so without asking for conversation, eye contact, or emotional effort. And when it gets up and walks away, there's no need to explain why. That shared respect for boundaries creates something rare: closeness without intrusion. Studies on human-cat relationships suggest that people who love cats aren't afraid of intimacy. They're avoiding pressure. They want connection that develops slowly, without force or urgency. Cats demonstrate that naturally. Through their behavior, they show that attachment doesn't need constant validation. With cats, affection is built and sustained through awareness. You start noticing the small things: a twitch of the tail, a subtle shift in posture, a change in breathing. Over time, this creates a bond based on respect, not control. Consent sits at the center of it. With cats, closeness is earned through sensitivity and maintained through trust. For people who've experienced any kind of boundary violation, this matters more than they may realize. Before thoughts form, before emotions are labeled, before meaning is assigned, regulation comes first. And cats have a quiet advantage here. A cat's purr vibrates at low, steady frequencies that the nervous system responds to automatically. Before your mind registers comfort, your body begins to slow down. Breathing deepens, muscles loosen, stress chemicals drop. Repetitive, low-frequency sounds signal safety to the brain. They tell your nervous system there's nothing urgent to handle, no action needed, no alertness required, just being present. For people who spend most of their lives managing emotional environments, this kind of regulation is rare. Silence can feel hollow, noise can feel overwhelming, but the steady rhythm of a purr sits perfectly in between. It fills space without taking it over. That's why many cat people describe a grounding feeling that's hard to put into words. They don't feel energized, they feel settled, as if their inner rhythm has finally aligned with the world around them. This is regulation together, without talking, comfort without performance. And the body learns quickly. Once it recognizes that a certain presence restores balance, attachment develops on its own. Now, about the intelligence stereotype. Yes, research shows that cat lovers often score higher on cognitive tests. But it's not because cats make people smarter. It's because certain traits tend to cluster. People who lean more introverted often spend more time in solitary mental activities, reading, writing, thinking deeply, sometimes overthinking, all while a cat sits nearby, purring on the keyboard. Research from Carroll University found clear patterns. Cat people scored higher in cognitive ability and openness to experience. They also scored higher in neuroticism. In other words, thoughtful, curious minds paired with a tendency to worry. So yes, that can look like walking encyclopedias with anxiety and complicated attachment styles. And somehow they make peace with it. But here's the real reason cats and thinkers pair so well. Deep thought requires uninterrupted focus, reflection, creativity, problem solving. All of it depends on long stretches of mental quiet. Cats don't disrupt that. They exist alongside attention without demanding it. They don't pull focus outward or ask for constant interaction. Their presence occupies space without breaking concentration. That's why so many writers, artists, and thinkers have been drawn to cats. They offer companionship that protects the silence where thinking happens. Not because cats make people more intelligent, but because they protect the conditions the mind needs to work well. Modern culture treats solitude like a problem to solve. Silence is often framed as loneliness, but for cat people, quiet is where clarity appears. There's also a biological reason a cat, a naturally solitary hunter, can trigger an almost irrational urge to protect it. Your brain responds to what ethologists call the baby schema. Large eyes compared to the face, a rounded head, a small nose, soft, gentle movements. When the brain notices these traits, it activates caregiving instincts before conscious thought has time to step in. Domestic cats fit this pattern surprisingly well. When a cat looks up at you, your brain reads infant, not predator. For many cat people, this feels safe because the dynamic flows in one direction without emotional demand. Care moves outward without requiring constant emotional return. A cat doesn't expect you to be upbeat. It doesn't need reassurance. It doesn't track your mood. For people who learned early to contain their emotions, caring for something that doesn't intrude can feel easier than receiving care themselves. Nurturing without intrusion allows closeness without emotional overload. And maybe this is the most important part about cat people. This was never really about cats. It was about the kind of nervous system you have and the kind of environment where it feels safest. Being drawn to cats doesn't mean you're distant or disconnected. It means you're wired for subtlety, for presence without pressure, for connection that doesn't demand constant output. Cats don't ask you to perform. They don't test loyalty. They don't confuse intensity with intimacy. They simply exist beside you. And for some people, that quiet companionship is exactly what allows them to feel human again. We're drawn to creatures that don't need us, and that's quietly revolutionary. In a culture obsessed with being needed and indispensable, cat people have chosen something else. They've chosen to love something that stays not out of dependency, but out of choice. So the next time your cat ignores you for hours and then suddenly demands your full attention, remember this. You're not just a cat owner. You're someone whose nervous system found what it needed to function without overload. Your cat didn't just choose you. Your body chose your cat. If this resonated with you, consider subscribing. And if you'd like to support these deeper explorations, you can also hit the join button to become a channel member. I truly appreciate your support.